The Man with Big Dreams. In a small, sun-baked village in western Burkina Faso, a young boy once stood under the baobab tree and told his classmates, "One day, I will change this country." They laughed. He was only 9, barefoot, wearing an old, oversized shirt, and living in a village where dreams were often buried under the weight of survival. His father worked the hard red soil to grow enough food to feed the family. His mother rose before the sun to fetch water, cook millet, and keep the home alive. Everyone in the village worked. Everyone struggled. But little Ibrahim was different. While others played, he read. When others gave up, he asked why. He wasn't just curious, he was relentless. He believed that greatness could grow from dry soil. Even as his friends mocked his dreams, he didn't stop. "When I grow up," he would say, "I'll wear the uniform of a soldier. Not to kill, but to protect. Not to obey, but to lead with courage." They laughed again. But laughter could not crush a burning purpose. With every test he passed, Ibrahim took a step further from the poverty that tried to chain him. His brilliance earned him a spot at the University of Ouagadougou. There, surrounded by concrete buildings and political tension, he studied hard sciences, but life taught him harder lessons. He saw the gap between leaders and the led. He saw students protest for fairness and be silenced. He watched as foreign powers whispered in the ears of national leaders, offering aid with invisible strings. He didn't just want a degree. He wanted understanding. During a student protest over rising tuition, he was arrested briefly. That night in a police cell, someone said to him, "You think you can change the system? You're just a village boy with a loud mouth." He smiled in the darkness. "They laughed at me in primary school too. But I'm still here." After university, Ibrahim joined the army, not because it was easy, but because it was necessary. Burkina Faso was under siege from within. Terrorist groups spread fear across the northern and eastern regions. Villages were abandoned. Children became orphans. The government was distant. Soldiers were under-equipped. Hope was disappearing. Captain Traoré, as he later became known, was deployed to the front lines. In the deadly Sahel, he commanded with clarity and calm. He slept on the ground with his men, shared rations, and led raids that pushed back enemies inch by inch. He refused bribes. He refused cowardice. He refused silence. One day, a reporter embedded with his unit asked, "Why risk your life in these forgotten places?" Ibrahim replied, "Because these forgotten places are my home. Every child we save is a reason to fight. Every village we defend is a promise kept." By 2022, the people of Burkina Faso were desperate. Terror had reached the capital. Corruption had paralyzed leadership. Soldiers were dying without ammunition. The rich lived well behind security gates, while the poor buried their dead in shallow graves. And in the barracks, anger boiled. Captain Traoré, young, respected, and unshakably loyal to the people, was urged by fellow soldiers, "We need someone who can lead. Someone who remembers what it means to suffer." He did not thirst for power. But he knew that silence now would be betrayal. On the 30th of September 2022, the streets of Ouagadougou trembled as the national government fell. But there were no loud declarations. Only a calm voice over the radio. "We have taken responsibility. For the sake of our nation." And just like that, the boy they once mocked became the youngest head of state in the world. They didn't laugh anymore. The world turned its eyes toward Burkina Faso. Who was this young man in a red beret with the gaze of a warrior and the voice of a villager? He didn't move into lavish presidential homes. He refused grand ceremonies. He walked among the people, visited displaced camps, and ordered reforms. He said no to foreign interference. He called for African unity. He formed partnerships that prioritized sovereignty. He demanded justice for those forgotten. "They called me a dreamer," he said once on national television. "But if dreaming is what saved our villages, then I'll keep dreaming until Africa wakes up." As pressure mounted from outside forces, Traoré stood firm. Sanctions were threatened. Propaganda spread. Western commentators said he was too young, too radical, too bold. But inside Burkina Faso, he became a symbol, a man who stood with his people rather than above them. The youth adored him. The poor trusted him. The soldiers followed him. He wore fatigues, not suits. He quoted Sankara, not colonial textbooks. He ended military agreements that drained national pride. At a Pan-African conference, he looked leaders in the eye and asked, "If we keep begging, who will respect us? If we keep obeying, who will fear us? Africa cannot rise with bowed heads." The last laugh. Years later, in a quiet moment, President Ibrahim Traoré visited his childhood village. Children ran barefoot around him, shouting his name. Elders gathered under the same baobab tree where he had once spoken of his dreams. An old classmate approached, grinning. "Do you remember? We used to laugh at you when you said you'd change the country." Traoré smiled gently, looking at the young boys now standing where he once stood. "Yes," he said. "But that laughter taught me something powerful. They don't laugh at the impossible because it's foolish. They laugh because deep down, they're afraid it might be true." He bent down, picked up a handful of the dry, cracked soil, and let it fall through his fingers. "Dreams are like seeds," he said quietly. "They only need time, and the courage to grow."